Data Doesn't Lie, your go-to for the science behind the art of parenting.
Hi guys, we're back, and this week we are celebrating something that happens once every 4 years. And you're right, you guessed, it's the leap year. And I found out something about the leap year that I wasn't expecting to find. Did you know that Bachelor's Day is an Irish tradition celebrated on leap day every 4 years? And in this tradition, on that day, women are allowed to initiate dances with men and actually propose to men on that day. I mean, really. And if the proposal was turned down, then the man had to buy her something. So by the 20th century, he had to buy her a fur coat. And later on, as the years progressed in the United Kingdom, he had to buy her a pair of gloves on Easter Day. And the woman could, the whole year of that leap year, she could propose every day if she wanted to, and he needed to buy her gloves. Yeah, I mean, just imagine the sense of empowerment these women must have felt, right? And for me, it kind of triggered a cycle of looking on the interwebs of women proposing, right? Women initiating the proposal process. And in 2008, there was a report published that said, and it was from Pinterest data, women searching the term women proposing to men, it literally went up by over 300% from the year before. So it's happening more frequently, but that doesn't mean that it's actually the norm, right? It's still not the norm. But I think more than that, how are women living life, being empowered? How are women, I think there's a lot more happening in many different domains other than proposing, where women are showing how empowered and how free and how confident they are. And to me, really, the closest, or what hits closest to home, is making the choice to raise a child by yourself, by your best and happy self, as opposed to choosing to stay in a relationship and be a mediocre, not necessarily your happy self. So that decision, taking control of your destiny that way, to me reflects that sense of empowerment, and that's kind of why I decided to talk about this. So stick around. I will have 4 tips for you, for those of you who are dating or considering dating strong women or women who have children, on how to make them or let them know that you recognize their strength, and how to continue to help them feel empowered. So tip number 4, and we'll count backwards. Tip number 4, she's not a stereotype. So let's dispel some myths or stereotypes that you think, or what you may have heard from friends, about what single mothers are or do. So according to a 2020 US Census Bureau, most single parents are mothers. That one's true. 80% of custodial parents are single mothers. True. The assumption that most single moms were single from the outset and never in a relationship is false, right? 46% are either separated or divorced. About 45-ish or so percent were never married, even though they were in a relationship, and about 1.2% are widowed. So that assumption that they weren't in a relationship before is false. The other assumption that most single mothers are young is also incorrect. 40% of single mothers are 40 years or older, so they're more mature. It's probably a decision that they came to consciously and they made willingly, so it wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. Another assumption that most single mothers receive some sort of government assistance is also false. I don't think there's anything wrong with receiving government assistance. I think, in fact, a single mother who's working a full-time job, as well, in fact, working 2 full-time jobs, because she's working a full-time job and raising kids by herself, needs all the assistance she can get. So the data on this one showed 52% of single mothers do not receive government assistance. So again, that assumption that most do is false. The other assumption that most single mothers are unemployed is false. Again, according to this US Census Bureau, they found 20% didn't have a job, 50% were gainfully employed, and that's a full-time job all year round. And the last one that I came across was an assumption that a single mother and her children live in poverty, even though no one really should live in poverty. The data showed that only 29% of single mothers and her children lived in poverty. So again, that assumption is wrong. So this is just data. This is just statistics and knowledge that you should know, so that you don't you don't have misconceptions and you don't put your foot in your mouth if you so happen to be dating a single mother or going to date a single mother. Tip number 3, be a bad feminist as opposed to no feminist at all. I like that phrase. And it was a Swedish professor who said that after spending a month just reading the classics, the feminist classics, right? Like Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex and a host of other books. He has a list of like 13 books that he kind of went through. The reason that he went through that list was because with this Me Too movement and women coming forward and recounting their stories with relationships, or not even relationships, of being harassed sexually and otherwise, he as a male wanted to find a way to be a feminist. How could he be a male feminist? So that was his sort of inspiration to writing that article and reading those books. And after reading all of that, he said in conclusion that the best way to do it is to start out by just sitting and listening, and like listening attentively, because by listening you're validating the other person's experience. So chances are that if you are thinking about or in the process of dating a single woman, a single mother, she walked away from a relationship. She chose to raise her children by herself, walking away from a relationship in which she probably felt disrespected to some extent in one way or the other, right? Chances of that are pretty strong. So I like that statement as it applies to this particular situation. So listen, just sit and listen to her experience of what she went through. Don't try to offer an explanation for why thing went the way it went, or don't try to mansplain it away for her. Just listen. Listening will give one insight as to the other's experience. And this really applies not only to single parents, actually to all relationships that we so happen to engage in. Even with relationships with our children, just listening validates the other person's experience. So listen. Tip number 2, her children or child is her heart exposed. So different people will have a different approach as to when to introduce a partner to their child or children. And once they do, though, know that that relationship is serious. That relationship should be valued, both for the child and for the woman involved. There was a study in 2016 that looked at the relationship, the link between stepfather involvement in a stepchild's life, not comparing it to, but what its effect was on the quality of the stepfather-child relationship. So they looked at about 470 step families in a low-income setting that had pre-adolescent children, and the stepfather involvement was defined as stepfather's presence and him partaking in everyday family tasks, everyday things that involved the child's care across all domains in family life. And the quality of the stepfather-child relationship was reported by the stepchild. And at the end of the study, they found that stepfather involvement was positively associated with the quality of the relationship between the child and the stepfather. So being involved made a difference, right? And any parent will tell you that the stability and the well-being of their child is of utmost importance to them. So stability and well-being are linked to the stability and well-being of a stepfamily, and the stepchild are linked to the quality of that relationship between the stepfather and the stepchild. So they all go hand in hand. So once you do become serious with a single parent and their family, put the same amount of work into that relationship with the child that you put into the relationship with the mother, because to her, that is as important, if not more. And tip number 1, your last tip: don't ask, just do. Being a parent, right? Just being a parent, not even a single parent or married parent, just being a parent is an act of juggling, where you're trying to keep this tiny human alive and fed and happy and not screaming at you in the grocery store, juggling that with keeping yourself somewhat presentable and healthy, trying to get everyone to where they need to get to on time, looking somewhat presentable. It's a juggling act, and doing that as a single parent by yourself is even harder, right? So true partnership is precious, and it just invaluable in as a parent. So I can tell you that my appreciation for a partnership just was, I appreciated it more anyway. I appreciated what true partnership could be when my mother moved in to help me with my daughter, and I'd be like, there'd be a thing I think about, like, oh, I need to get this done, or I need to make her food for XYZ, I need to make sure she has veg, just something or the other, and I'd come to do it, and I realized that my mom has already done it, and it was just a silent communication of some sort, that she would see a need and fill the need without me having to actually ask for the need to be filled. So if you are in a relationship, or you're thinking about getting into a relationship with a single parent, of course in the beginning you're going to ask, what do you need? And she'll tell you what she needs, because she knows exactly what she needs and where she needs the help. But as you get into her world and you see her everyday life, asking that question over and over again can actually just get tiring and annoying at some point, because just the mental energy of processing and replying that takes a lot from her. So you'll see the need, fill the need, without asking her what needs to get done. Just do, don't ask. And that's your last tip. I hope you enjoyed this particular session. It was a little different, but I enjoyed doing it. So I will see you guys next week for another chat.